Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For you guys that are new, my name is Bayo Adio, and I'm essentially a second generation Nigerian American who is rediscovering Nigeria as an adult. And I talk a lot about lifestyle in Nigeria, culture, and just a lot of investment opportunities that I'm doing with like real estate and farming, and just so many different adventures as it pertains to Nigeria. So if that's your jam, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out a lot of my other playlists as well to just kind of learn more about my journey and adventure. Today, I want to specifically talk about one of the projects that I've been working on. For you guys that have been following me, you guys would know that I'm working on a farm in Nigeria, and the farm is like a group farm. So that means it's not owned by me. There's a lot of, I have a small community of people who invested, and we just have this community that we're building a farm on with the promise that I'm going to give them return on investment on their farming. So the farming is in Ogun State, and that's what we've been working on probably for almost like a year and a half now. And for you guys that are brand new, that's kind of what the project is about. But for you guys that have been following me, you guys would already know about the project. So today I want to use this to share about the experiences that I learned my first time doing farming, why I wasn't as successful as I wanted to in my first year of farming. A lot of the times on my channel, you guys kind of see some success of the things that we've been able to accomplish, of things that I've been able to do. And I've shared some of the processes and challenges that I face, but I also want to do more videos of some of the failures that I've had. And if failure is even the right word to use, they're definitely hardcore lessons that I've learned. And my purpose of sharing this video, number one, is actually for me to go back and rewatch this video sometimes so I don't make the same mistake. But ideally, most importantly, it's actually for like you guys that are trying to follow my journey, or because I talk to some people who want to do something similar that I'm doing. So whether you're a local Nigerian that wants to kind of do what I'm doing, or you're a diaspora, it doesn't even matter. If you kind of want to follow the business model that I am following on the farming side, I hope to share some tips for you so that you don't make some of the same mistakes that I have done. I think this is the beauty of YouTube and sharing, is that you can share, because I've learned from many people to like not make the mistakes that they have made. So I'm also giving back so that when you guys take on this adventure, whether it's your own farm that you want to build in the nearest future, or you also want to run like a community farm that I'm doing, you can learn to not make these mistakes. So for the sake of focus, I wrote down some notes, and I wrote down so many points, but I'm able to narrow it down to like 20. So we're gonna dive into this 21 piece at a time. So I don't know if this is going to be a long video, but I'm going to be quick with some of my points, and some of them I would elaborate more on. But if there's something that you want me to like offer more details on, just make sure that you leave a comment underneath. That would give me like either I need to shoot another video to elaborate more on it or respond to you. So I am going to be looking at my phone periodically to just kind of share the 20 lessons, why I was just not successful, as successful as I want for the first year of farming. The good news is we were able to pay out ROIs, but man, we could have done so much better. Okay, so let's start with number one. Are you looking to relocate, invest, have a second home, or retire in Nigeria? If so, I have an opportunity for you. I would like to introduce you to the Green Paradise community. Visit thegreenparadise.com. We're looking forward to having you join our community. See you there. The number one issue that we had that I underestimated is water. My gosh. So because of lack of water, this messed up the timing for when we were supposed to plant in order to align with the harvesting dates. to get the maximum benefits of the crops that we're doing. And just not having water delayed our farming project by literally almost like 7 to 8 months. So one thing that I should have done better if I'm going to do this again is I would have actually, before purchasing the land, before investing in all of that stuff, I actually would have done, and I know most people don't do this, I didn't think to do it either, but if I'm gonna do something of this scale, I would actually pay money to take like a surveyor that does like these borehole surveys to go and assess the place to see how challenging it would be to get water there and how much it would be. Because if I would have done that before, I would have saved so much time. So we hired a company, and that company worked there for like 2-3 months, and he ended up bailing because he couldn't, a lot of issues happened with his machines, it broke and all that stuff. And the second company that we brought also took them like 2 months of persistence trying to get water in, and they finally were able to be successful. So how did this affect? I think that even growing up, I grew up in a place where when I was growing up in Nigeria, we had to go fetch water far away. And obviously living in the US, I never have to worry about water. It was none of my, like on my radar. But even with that, I knew water was important, but I really didn't feel like how important it was in that type of environment. I think I thought of water as like, you know, you drink, you take a shower, you bathe, you brush your teeth. But in this environment, like literally we were stuck. We couldn't do water for anything. Anytime I'm like, okay, if we need water for this, let's do this project. Like, let's just start on the farm manager house. They're like, sorry, we need water. I'm like, okay, fine. If we can't do that, let's just start making bricks. And they're like, no, we need water. Every little thing that I want to do. Obviously, you need water to water the crops. You need water to spray, like for the like manure. You just need water to do everything outside of even surviving to drink water. So anyways, water was like essential to literally do. There's so many things that popped up that I just realized that we could not. So when you hear the term water is life, it is truly like you cannot exist without water. So anyways, so that was number one lesson learned, is I should have paid more attention to actually the access to water in that area before I embarked on my project. Number two, farmlands typically are not as easily accessible. Usually the areas that are accessible by road are residential areas, and farmlands are a little bit further in. I did not think accessibility to the farmland would be as much issue as it ended up being. The issue that we kind of came across, because of the distance of the place and kind of the road, the cost of doing business all of a sudden became 25-30% higher. So transportation cost was 25 to 30% higher for taking goods in and out of the farm. Buying any materials was higher because people always talked about the distance to drive in and the bad roads. So that literally cost us so much money that next time if I was making a decision on a land, I would have purchased a land that is way more accessible and just paid premium for it. So as you guys are, if some of you guys that are interested in investing in Green Paradise and you're talking about how the price is high in Ogun State, just know that when you see cheap lands, it's far, 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 far inside. One of the reasons why we're pricing it higher is because we are making the residential area of Green Paradise that we're building very accessible, and you have to pay money. And I have learned this lesson before when I was in US with one of my smoothie shops, that location matters. But I think because I was thinking this was a farm, I didn't put a high emphasis on it. But man, that is a huge, huge mistake. Again, for you guys that are doing small scale farming, it's not a big deal. Even large scale farming, you can kind of work it out, but just plan that as part of your expenses, that your farming cost is going to be high, or at least you have your own personal like truck or vehicle that you can use to transport the products by yourself instead of hiring people to transport for you. So we didn't have the funds to invest so much money to like purchase a big truck. So we had to leverage of hiring people. So that was expensive. So I think next time maybe having our own like a pickup truck or something would have been better. All right. Number three, and these are not necessarily in any order, I just kind of wrote down points. Number three, I think I made a error in the type of like qualities that I was looking for when I hired a farm manager. So which we've worked it out now. So I think initially when I was looking for a farm manager, I hyper-focused on somebody that had knowledge on farming, and which I still focus a lot more on character, integrity. I try to look for like the right fit of somebody that knew. But over time in this process of going through the whole cycle, I later realized that the farming skill was not as important as like management skills, human resource development skills, project management skills, budgeting skills. All of these things actually became louder than the farming skills, which we've worked out now. So now I had to focus on a little bit more coaching, on leadership, on perspective on how to do things. So if you guys are hiring a farm manager next time for a large scale operation, hire somebody that either be ready to train them on these soft skills, or focus more on like project management over like just only farming, because you can always hire a consultant, hire different people to learn about farming. So that's one error that I think I made that we cross corrected. So we actually let our farm manager go, and then we brought him back again. So yeah, but I think he's doing like just amazing right now. But I think the expectations was just not set. All of this is pure leadership error on my end, on like me prioritizing what I thought was more important. But sometimes that's the only way to learn. So I think now he is doing amazing. He's doing great. We all have proper expectations. Systems are in place, and I am a systems guy. So I also had to take time to put systems in place for him to follow, and when you guys own a business, the business owner is responsible for systems. The business owner is responsible for recruiting. And then when you hire a management or a staff, you're hiring them to manage your system. So I'm a business coach, so that's kind of how we coach business. But it took me a while to kind of understand systems. And systems, you can put systems inside of a business without actually knowing the ins and outs of the business. You're just paying attention to schedule, to efficiency, and all of those type of things. So that is what we had to do. So yeah, so that's one. Number 4, initially, we were trying to figure out we were battling between using manual labor and machine. And this would kind of help you guys, for you guys that are starting. So there's kind of pros and cons to both is what I've learned. Hands down, if you guys are taking on farming and you have more than 5 acres, you are going to be better off paying that big, gigantic sum of amounts to hire a bulldozer if you're working on a virgin land to just kind of clear the land for you. Doing it manually costed way too much money and took way too much time. So like something that a bulldozer can do in like 1 week, manual labor, it might take them like months to do it. So like in terms of time, the difference was like drastic. So I made that mistake in the beginning because I was trying to save costs, because it was much cheaper to hire manual labor. But the machine, you're paying like 200,000 naira, 150 to 200,000 naira per day for them to clear, and then you're paying for transportation to come, and you're buying diesel for them to clear, you're paying for the operator. It was just such a high amount to invest to bring a bulldozer that it scared me that we went back to manual labor. But anyways, that's lesson learned. Now, I am going to contradict a little bit of what I just said. So over time, and again, this is something that we're learning, over time, like when it was time to harvest and when we were seeing like all the different experimentations that we did, we definitely noticed that the place that was manually cleared, or the bulldozer didn't kind of clear too much, the crops outperformed and grew very healthily and bigger than the place that we cleared with the machine. Isn't that crazy? So I also learned a valuable lesson that next time when I clear, and because the topsoil is important, and people told me about the topsoil, and I'm like, that's fine. We just won't go that low to clear. We'll just clear the big trees. But all those stumps that was around, what I should have done next time is I should have hired the bulldozer to take all those stumps and spread it back on the farm. Or better yet, if I'm going to actually take on a new farming project on a kind of virgin land, I would actually lean, it depends on what I'm planting, but I think I would lean towards manual clearing and just, even if it takes them 2-3 months, and just do it, because the richness of the soil, the results was just drastically different. So anyways, so that's one lesson we learned with equipment and machine. Or if I use a machine, I would make sure to pay the extra money, which is very expensive, to spread the topsoil and all of those mulch back and spread it throughout the land. All right, so that was point number 4. Point number 5, one thing I learned, so when we initially kind of started on this project, and again, when you're in it, you're not thinking about it. When I have time to reflect back, and some of you guys might be watching this video and it would look like common sense, but it's because you're listening from the outside and you're hearing me say it. But some of these things, it took a little bit of reflection for me to learn, and time. So I focused heavily more on how much we could gain, that I didn't focus enough more on how much we could reduce cost of production. And when we ran the numbers and when we started tracking, I noticed that our profit was very, very low to negative, because our cost of production was very, 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 very high. So I think over time, I learned to do cost analysis. Like, before we even take on this thing, let's figure out like what it would cost, like from A to Z. So like a lot of people in Nigeria don't really do a lot of project management cycles. So now I'm forcing it on my team. Like, before we take on any project, I need to know every single step and how much it's going to cost for every single step, and then calculate the profit earned to see if it's worth it. But because I was kind of like still learning, we were just spending to do this step, like, oh, I didn't know that we need to do this step, so we need to do it. Oh, I didn't know that we needed to do this, we need to do it. And by the time we ran through it, we didn't do it efficiently enough. So yeah, so I would say focused more on keeping your cost of production as low as possible, over focusing on the gain. So I know it sounds like a very simple point, but man, I wish I had focused more on doing it ahead of time for profitability. All right. Are you looking to relocate, invest, have a second home, or retire in Nigeria? If so, I have an opportunity for you. I would like to introduce you to the Green Paradise community. Visit thegreenparadise.com. We're looking forward to having you join our community. See you there. Point number 6. I kind of, because I was coming from like a self-sustainability mindset, I kind of like did a little bit more of this, but I wish that I have done it more in the beginning, which is like looking for more self-sustainable way to do things. So when people think of self-sustainability, I think we typically think of, solar power, borehole, those type of things. But over time, I had to learn of like what are cheaper ways and what can we leverage around our farm in the community that to kind of accomplish what we want. Like an example is like manure. So typically in the beginning, people were like, okay, you buy fertilizer, you do this. But like an easy sustainable way was to approach our poultry next door and get all the manure from the chicken to use as fertilizers. It was cheaper, it was effective, and it was good, and we didn't have to buy, chemicals to spray. So I thought that one was like a good way for self-sustainability. Another one is just, when you change your mind about that, you start seeing things around you in a very useful and resourceful way. So it's also now thinking of like the trees that we cut, what can we do with it? How can we generate revenue for it, or how can we reproduce it to use it in our farm? So I think if I would have done more of that from the beginning, we would have saved a lot of money. And we would have had we would have saved a lot of money, really, it's what it came down to. So yeah, but we are adapting more of that. Even the things that we're building, we're using the soil to kind of build even some of the house and the structures that we're putting together, which I think is very cool. So anyway, so always think of like, before you go out and buy things, think of like, what can you use around you to accomplish that? So point number 7 is I made a huge mistake. So the model of our farm essentially was a community farm. So it was not like a farm that's owned by one person. So the mistake I did was I did not do everything that I wanted to do at the same time, like planting at the same time, weeding at the same time. So trying to manage one farm, it felt like I was managing 50 farms. Why? Because when people like reached out to me saying, Bayo, I want to be a part of your community, I want to pay for farming, I would plot out their own 1 acre and we'll start farming there. And then when the next person comes, and next person might come a month later, saying I want to invest, then I carve out their own land and then we plant there. And another person comes 3 weeks later, we'll do that. So guess what? Now we have to track schedules for when we planted for like 30 to 50 people. When we want to weed was at different times for many people. So this, in terms of labor, in terms of capacity, horrible idea. Because now everything was just like trying to track all the data of everybody. We were not leveraging, like doing things as a wholesale. We were doing manual clearing, machine clearing, or we had to bring people back, transportation costs. It was just a hot mess. So that's definitely a huge lesson that I've learned, that if I'm actually taking on this, like if we're going to do AgroPark Phase 2, I would almost, and this is what we ended up doing. I ended up communicating with all of my investors that guess what, guys, whether you're farming, whether you're not farming, we're going to clear all at the same time, and we're going to plant all at the same time, and we're going to like weed at the same time. The harvesting at least can be staggered a little bit, but doing it this way this time was just so much easier. So it was just more like I came, we got like 10, 20, 30 people, everybody, we're like, all right, everybody clear this place. You plant cassava, 20 acres planting there. It was also good for my own time. I know that, okay, 3 weeks, we're focused on this instead of planting the whole year and then everything just being scattered. So that was a big mistake that I made on my end. So it's either I just start all the planting already at the same time and get people to invest in and it's already going, or raise all the funds and have all the funds ready before I go. But I was just kind of going small by small and just horrible. I was planting 1 acre at a time, 2 acres at a time, 3 acres at a time, and just doing that back and forth. So labor was very expensive, to say the least. Okay, number 8 is having the end game in mind. So I think that eventually we got so much more into the process that we didn't focus too much on like the end game. We had a rough idea of how much things would cost to sell, where we would sell it to, who would be the off-takers, but we just didn't think through some of the details, like in terms of timing, when is best times to sell? What about the transportation and logistics costs to sell? What product form do these people prefer to buy? Do they prefer to buy like your raw product or semi-processed product? So we didn't just do enough research. We just kind of knew that, okay, this person is going to buy this, but we didn't like ask more of the specifics. So I think this time we're doing heavy research on exactly how do you want it, how much quantity do you want, in what format do you want it, who's harvesting, who's providing the vehicle, are you coming to the sites to harvest it, or are we bringing it to you? All of those details, we just didn't think enough about it. So yeah, so always have the end game in mind, but also more specifics of how it's going to actually play out when it's time. But also kind of talking to people ahead of time. So they know like, okay, in 3-4 months, you already have some commitments of like in 3-4 months, this is all yours. You can come and get it. We were more like approaching people who we've talked to in the past a long time ago that they were interested. We were approaching them when it was time to harvest instead of like before the harvest was ready. Like 3-4 months, we should have initiated all the contact and set up already a plan. So that was that. Number 9, we couldn't really like anticipate too much. We had like a crazy monkey invasion at the farm. Again, these are some of the things that people just don't anticipate. So I think monkey ate up so much of our crops. So eventually we now had to get like hunters to scare them off and kind of apply some random local techniques to keep them away. I think like planting, I don't even remember, planting some stuff around there, adding scarecrow, just a whole bunch of random things to try to get them out, and then pests. So that was a disaster. That was very sad because I would go to the farm and we would see like they have just tore all of these places up, and they would come in and like usually like 2, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. So by the time the farm managers woke up, they saw all of that. So anyways, So that's one thing that we had to also figure out on the farm to kind of learn. So yeah, again, you guys might not have this problem, but now we have like security and hunters day and night that kind of monitor what's going on the farm to protect our assets. So we just had to do it. Number 10, I think that from a leadership standpoint, coming into Nigeria, because of the way that I've been trained, we are trained to not micromanage, and I hate to micromanage. I hate it so much. But when you're running a project like this and you have some specificity, I think I should have done a little bit more micromanage and not be afraid to do so. Because in the Nigerian climate, when you are not around, like my farm managers, the higher level people, I trust them to get the job done. But I think the laborers and the people doing things and the people bringing products, literally, you can't really trust a lot of people to get the job done. They wouldn't do it properly. Integrity is not high. So if you want it done properly, you want to make sure all your items are there, you have to be there to count, you have to verify, you have to supervise them, you have to watch over them. That's a huge lesson I learned here. So whenever I'm kicking off a project, I typically like to be present. The maintenance, I know that my team can handle, but when we're kicking off these big projects like an Airbnb setup or a farm setup, I feel like I have to be there because there's some small details that get missed. So micromanaging in this part of the world, unfortunately, is very, very important. So if you've learned leadership skills about not to micromanage your employee, that doesn't work in this part of the world. Or you would not get what you want. All right, guys. So that is part 1 of the lessons that I have learned in my farming, why I failed at farming at the first time, why I was not as successful. So these are 10 points that I've made. I am going to shoot a part 2 because I have 10 more points. So if you want to watch part 2 of this video, make sure to subscribe so you're notified when I post the part 2. So that way you get a notification that Bayo has posted part 2. And I have more unique points too in this part 2 that is a bit more business related and a bit more kind of environment related. You definitely don't want to miss it. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you got some good nuggets out of it, number 1, share which one was like your most favorite points that I made, or the one that was the most enlightening, or the one that was the most interesting. And number 2, make sure to like this video. It would help my channel. It would help me algorithmically for people to see more of what I'm doing. It would get me more exposure. And number 3, make sure to subscribe so you can be notified when I post more videos, especially when I post part 2 of this. As soon as I post it and you've subscribed and you turn on the notification bell, you will get an email or a notification that Bayo has posted the video. So make sure to subscribe. And lastly, remember, it's your time to rise and let your light shine. Peace.